The automatic doors of Maple Ridge General Hospital slid open with a soft hiss, cutting through the usually noisy Tuesday afternoon. The intercom, the rolling carts, the phone conversations, all seemed to stop at the same time. A nurse dropped her pen, the plastic hitting the floor with a sound like a small explosion. A mother pulled her daughter closer. A man in a gray suit stopped mid-sentence, eyes locked on the entrance. There, in the doorway still dripping with rain, he stood. Cole Bear Jackson, president of the Iron Heart Riders Motorcycle Club. Tall, rugged, his black leather jacket worn and faded, both arms covered in tattoos, old scars running along his neck and jawline. The Skull and Iron Wings logo on his back looked like it was challenging the world. Every step of his heavy boots left wet, dark prints on the hospital floor. His long hair, soaked with rain, was tied back loosely. Drops of water ran along the tattoos on his wrist. His weather-beaten face was tight with tension, his gray-blue eyes red-rimmed, as if holding back something slipping out of his control. But it wasn't the biker himself who froze the entire ER. It was what he was carrying in his arms. In those large, rough hands was a little girl, around 5 years old, so small she almost disappeared against the black leather jacket. Her pink coat was soaked in blood, one arm hanging at an unnatural angle. Her face was pale, her lips turning blue, her chest rising and falling in weak, fragile breaths. The biker, half the town of Maple Ridge whispered about as trouble on two wheels, now stood hunched over, holding the child as if she were his entire world. In the cold, white hallway, those two contrasting images, leather and tattoos and a blood-soaked pink jacket, created a scene no one could look away from. "Somebody help her?" Cole's voice cracked, rough and breaking through the thick air. "She's not breathing right. Please." Some moments make us question whether we've been judging someone entirely wrong just because of their appearance. A biker covered in tattoos holding a dying little angel in his arms is one of those moments. If you believe kindness can come from the most unexpected places, if you want to hear the full story behind this moment, take a second to like and subscribe and tell us where you're watching from, because the story ahead may make you think twice before judging anyone ever again. Before becoming the scary biker people were staring at, Cole Jackson was just a single father in the small town of Maple Ridge, Oregon. This was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's license plate. People recognized Cole long before they heard the sound of his engine. When a line of Harley bikes from the Iron Heart Riders roared down the street, windows shook, kids pressed their faces to the glass, and adults shook their heads. The bikers are out again. But in the small wooden house on the edge of town, Cole was a completely different person. He carried his daughter, little Mia, 5 years old, with wavy chestnut hair that always got messy after playing. She loved climbing onto their worn-out sofa, spreading her arms like a superhero, then launching herself into his lap. Giggling, "Daddy Bear caught Mia again." 2 years ago, Cole's world shattered when his wife, Hannah, died of cancer. From a man who lived on the road, used to highways and the wind roaring behind him, he had to learn everything from scratch. How to braid his daughter's hair, how to cook breakfast, how to read children's books in silly character voices to make Mia laugh. The Iron Heart Riders, the group the town labeled dangerous, became Mia's second family. They brought her first doll after Hannah's funeral. They stood quietly at the back of the school playground during her kindergarten performance, their black leather jackets clashing with the floral dresses of the moms. Then came that Sunday, the day everything began with one simple sentence. "Daddy, can we go to the park today so I can practice riding without training wheels?" The Maple Ridge Park that afternoon was filled with laughter, barking dogs, and the thump of bouncing balls. Sunlight streamed through tree branches, casting long shadows on the path. Mia wore her bear-shaped helmet, her legs trembling slightly on the pedals. "Look, Daddy, I don't need the training wheels anymore." Cole walked beside her, one hand on the back of the bike seat, the other holding up his phone to record. In the video, his voice was both proud and nervous. Mia grinned brightly, her pigtails bouncing. "I'm a mini Ironheart rider!" Just one moment. Cole's phone buzzed in his pocket. A call from the repair shop. Instinct, the instinct of a club president and mechanic, made him pull it out. 1 second. Just enough for him to take his eyes off the small blue bike. At the other end of the park, a black pickup truck sped through the parking lot, the driver searching for a spot, eyes glued more to the GPS screen than the road. The bike path and the vehicle lane crossed at one point. Exactly where Mia was riding, still smiling, completely unaware. Cole heard the screech of brakes before he understood what was happening. A long, sharp sound, a heavy impact, then someone screaming. "Maya!" The little bike flew to the side, its wheels still spinning. Mia lay motionless on the pavement, her pink jacket beginning to stain with blood along her side. Her small arm was twisted at an angle that made Cole feel sick. He ran, dropping to his knees beside her. Everything around him blurred, the panicked driver's face, people murmuring, the distant sound of sirens. Cole heard only Mia's weak, uneven breaths. "Sweetheart, look at Daddy. Look at me." His large hands trembled violently as he touched her cheek. There was no time to wait for an ambulance. From years of riding across states, Cole knew every road in town. The distance from the park to Maple Ridge General was just over 10 minutes, if he rode full throttle. He lifted Mia, her blood soaking into his jacket. His black Harley roared like a wild beast. And that was how, minutes later, a tattooed biker carrying a bleeding little girl walked straight into the ER, freezing the entire hospital. Cole's voice snapped everyone back to reality. A young nurse named Rachel Owens was the first to react. She rushed forward, pushing the emergency gurney, her voice firm. "Trauma room 2! Call Dr. Sullivan now!" Cole hesitated for half a second when Rachel's hand touched Mia. The instinct of a terrified father made his arms tighten. To him, anyone touching his daughter, even those he begged for help, felt like a threat. "Mr. Cole, I'm a nurse. I'm here to help her." Rachel spoke slowly, keeping her voice calm. She looked straight into his eyes, not avoiding the tattoos, not flinching at his intimidating appearance. "You bring Mia here for checkups all the time. I recognize you both. Please trust me." Hearing his daughter's name come from this small woman made Cole's shoulders sag. He let go, carefully placing Mia on the gurney. His blood-covered hands shaking as they left her pink jacket. Inside the trauma room, Dr. Mark Sullivan, silver-streaked hair, the calm face of someone too familiar with the line between life and death, quickly assessed the situation. Female child, about 5. Suspected chest trauma, possible broken arm, and potential internal bleeding. Blood pressure dropping, pulse rapid and weak. Cole stood pressed against the wall, still as a boulder in the cramped room. His leather jacket was soaked with his daughter's blood, the Ironheart Rider's logo fading under the red smears. He wanted to run to her, to hold her, but he knew he would only get in the way. Will she make it? His voice was barely a whisper, raw and hoarse. "We'll do everything we can," Dr. Sullivan said, then looked at Rachel. "But he needs to wait outside." "We need space." In the hallway, the tension was thick enough to choke on. The hospital administrator, Linda Parker, hurried over, her expression a mix of worry and fear. "Rachel, do you know who that man is? His whole biker gang is sitting in the waiting room. Families are scared." Rachel wiped the blood from her hands and looked up, her eyes no longer those of a subordinate, but of someone who had just seen a man nearly break apart, carrying his daughter inside. "I know who he is," she said slowly. "He's the girl's father. Everything else is just leather and prejudice." The first turning point didn't come from anything dramatic, but from a small choice. In the midst of fearful stares, someone chose to look at Cole as a father, not as a tattooed biker. 3 hours passed in the Maple Ridge General waiting room like 3 years. Cole sat there, his leather jacket stained with blood, his empty hands interlacing then unclenching again and again. Around him, 6 Iron Heart riders sat in uncharacteristic silence, no one mentioning bikes, roads, or rides anymore. Cole stood up every few minutes to pace. Every time the surgery doors swung open, his heart plummeted. The people who had avoided them earlier now only watched quietly, their fear replaced by genuine concern for a little girl they had never met. A middle-aged woman approached, clutching her purse strap tightly. "Earlier, I pulled my son away from you," she admitted, her voice shaky, her eyes red. "But I heard the nurse say how you carried her in. I was wrong to judge you just because of your jacket and tattoos. I hope she's okay." I'm sorry." Cole couldn't find words. He only nodded, a nod heavy with the weight of the world on his shoulders. Finally, Dr. Sullivan walked out, removing his mask. The room held its breath. "The surgery was successful," he said. "Mia lost a lot of blood, and we had to remove her spleen, but her heart and brain are stable. She's very strong. Now she needs time to recover." Cole's legs gave out, and one of his brothers caught him. For a few moments, these men, the town called dangerous, were just friends hugging each other, crying because a 5-year-old had been pulled back from the edge of death. Months later, Mia was running around again, a small scar on her belly like a medal. The Iron Heart Riders returned to Maple Ridge General, this time with a banner hanging outside. MIA's Ride, Annual Blood Drive. They chose to commemorate the worst day of their lives by giving their own blood, so other children wouldn't fall into the same darkness Mia once did. If people only saw Cole Jackson on the street, with his black leather jacket, tattoo-covered arms, and the skull logo of the Iron Heart Riders, most would instinctively walk faster. They would pull their children closer, whispering, "Stay away from them." But in the white hallway of Maple Ridge General that day, no one saw a dangerous biker. They saw a father pacing like a lost soul outside the operating room. A man collapsed when he heard his daughter had a chance to live. A group of leather-clad friends sit silently for hours just to see a 5-year-old girl open her eyes again. From fear and avoidance, the hospital gradually grew familiar with the annual sight of Harley bikes filling the parking lot, men who looked intimidating rolling up their sleeves to donate blood at MIA's Ride. The skull logo was still there. The engines still loud, but to many, they now symbolized something else. The memory of a little girl in a pink jacket who survived because of her father's fierce love. In the end, what defines a person isn't the clothes they wear. It's how they treat those who are weaker when everything is falling apart. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe to Kindness Stories 365. Share this video, and tell me in the comments about a time when you saw someone differently after hearing their story.